All right, guys, so I'm actually out here right now working on this hood for the 94 Mustang. And if you remember from one of the last episodes, we got this hood for 150 bucks locally, but it needed some work. It has a bunch of clear coat that is faded off almost all the entire thing and peeling off, chipping. So we've got to kind of sand that all down, and then we can go ahead and shoot it with just some matte black that I bought. And then once that kind of cures, then we're gonna go and get it wrapped. So I'll kind of show you guys the process of what I'm doing right now. All right, so I ended up going to Walmart and I bought a bunch of sanding stuff. Actually, I do have like an orbital, like 5 or 7 inch palm sander, but it's at my sister's house. She's borrowing it, so I don't have that handy and I don't feel like going to get it or buy one. So anyway, we're just, hand doing it. We do have a kind of a block here to sand, but I've just got some 180 grit. I didn't want to go too crazy because it is just fiberglass and it seems to be doing an okay job. So we've gotten some parts like this pretty smooth, where with my hand now, I can't feel the difference, between where this is still clear coat and this is just the undercoat. So that's all pretty smooth. And then we'll start to actually go in an increase, go hit it with some 320 grit. I've got some filler stuff that will fill in some of the little imperfections, and then we can spray it with some primer, block it again, and then we'll finally hit it with some paint. But like this side, for example, I haven't really started here at all, so you can see how that clear coat's all flaking. So we've got to kind of get that all down, and so that basically it looks like this, nice and smooth. So this isn't very hard. I mean, you can't really screw it up too much. You just I do it a little bit of a mixture by hand, where you're just kind of holding the pad or holding the paper. You don't want to push too hard with like 2 fingers because you can get some finger marks, but I just kind of go in a circle. Sometimes you can't. If there's not room, you just have to go straight, but wherever you can, I like to use the block. It is way easier. It's weighted, so the block's great, but the block's a little bit tough sometimes when you're trying to get into some of these areas here. That's where you got to do it by hand, but otherwise just sand it, run your hand across it. If it's freaking smooth with your hand, it's going to be smooth with paint for the most part. So that's really all you gotta do. So sometimes it'll look weird, just touch it. If it feels good, you can't feel it, boom, you're good to go. Move on to the next step, keep on rolling. All right, so at this point, I'm pretty much done with 320. And now I wanna move on to putting on this glazing putty that I've got somewhere. But you can see, I'm not sure how well the camera picks up, but you can see where, so when I run my hand across, it's completely smooth, but of course we can see these deep sanding marks from the from the 180 grit sandpaper. So next though, we're gonna go ahead and do the glazing putty. We'll kind of put that on because at this point it feels really smooth, and then you can feel some little imperfections here and there. So these are gonna get some glazing putty. We'll let that dry, we'll come back, we'll sand that again, and then kind of the whole thing will end up getting sanded with the 320. That way we'll get out a lot of these deep scratches, have the whole thing looking pretty good, pretty uniform. But again, this stuff, bodywork stuff, I know it scares a lot of guys, but when you get into the actual paint and clear coat, that part of the finish is actually hard to do. But the bodywork, it's not hard. It does take a long time. And the bodywork is the absolute key. If you have crappy bodywork, your paint that lays on top of it's going to be crappy. So this is the part where you really don't want to rush it. It takes a little while, but just keep going over it. I don't even have a freaking orbital. I'm just out here hand sanding it. And I've still probably only maybe got 30, 45 minutes into it. Look at how easy. I mean, this hood from just looking like absolute garbage, ready to be thrown away. A little bit of elbow grease, and she's looking pretty good. Once you get some primer on there, it's gonna look pretty sweet. All right, so here's what we're using. Just some simple glazing spot putty. You could use like Bondo too, then you got the 2 parts that you got to mix together. This stuff's a little bit easier, especially since all we've got some very small little imperfections and stuff that we're just kind of trying to fix up. So we don't have anything big. The glazing putty's super simple. Pop it out, boom, spread it, just put it on there, let it dry, and then just come back and sand it. So this should be pretty simple. I probably only got maybe a dozen little areas over this entire hood. At least I think so. We'll see when we get into it. So let's get that going and get some of these big guys knocked out. Little helper's out here. She's got the glazing putty going. So we just been applying this for like literally 1 minute, and you can see it's already starting to dry pretty immediately. So this stuff dries pretty quickly. And again, you're just like you're kind of slinging drywall on, right? Just put a thin coat, Some of them will take a couple coats. Like for example, I think this is the only one that probably needs 2 coats where it's real thick. Nope, don't, it's already dry. So anyway, and cool part, it's a different color. So now you're just gonna go back, once it fully dries, sand it again, and then just repeat the process. Just keep running your hands over it. Once you're pretty happy that it's all pretty smooth and you don't need glazing putty, then I'll probably go ahead and take the 320 grit, quickly kind of go over all of that. Look at this kid, dude, 7-year-old savage out here just body working it up. Do your thing, Bob. Good job, buddy. Look at you. Professional. So what do you think about this hood?
I think it looks pretty. I just think we should add some more spray paint because it's a little white.
Oh yeah, we're gonna paint it black. What do you think? Is that cool?
But it's red, and you just put red on here.
Oh no, that's just some stuff. We're gonna sand it all, and then we're gonna spray. All right, guys, so we got 2 coats now. This is the second coat of glazing putty. I went through the first, I just kind of sanded it. I actually ended up just using 180 to sand it. I started out doing 320, it was just taking too long, so 320, boom, went back. There's still a few little spots I just wanted to retouch up or put a second coat on, and also probably some spots that I missed originally, so it's coming out pretty good. I will probably let this dry for a little bit. Hopefully I can sand it. I gotta leave pretty soon, and probably gonna be it for today, but if I can get it sanded, that'd be cool. If not, we'll sand it tomorrow, and then I think I'll just kind of quickly go over the whole top again with some 320, and then I'm not sure if I'm gonna spray it or I might actually just flip it over first, and then start kind of prepping the bottom side. The bottom side will be really easy, just kind of needs like a quick scratch coat. And then honestly for paint, just one quick coat. It's already black. I don't know how well you can see it, but yeah, so it's already black. So not much needed here. I just want to give it one little fresh coat. I just got done sanding down the second coat of the glazing putty that dried from yesterday. And let me just kind of show you where we're at right now. All right, so we got this bad boy all sanded now with 320. I do have a couple little spots on the edges where I wanted to put just a little bit more of the glazing putty. We'll let that harden, but what I'm gonna do right now is now that it's all sanded, you get a bunch of that stuff left over, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with the wax and grease remover. So we're just gonna wipe this stuff on, wipe it off, just kind of clean it up a little bit. All right, so we got it flipped over. I just hit it a little bit with the air compressor, just had a whole bunch of debris and leaves and crap like that from all the years, especially under that part. But anyway, it looks pretty good. I don't see any like cracks or any big damage or any issues like that. Now these hoods are funny where this one's made for the latch still, which I'm almost contemplating if I want to take it out because I am going to use hood pins on this, so I could just hood pin it. This is still functional, but it is kind of loose. But I mean, it came off of a running driving car, so should be just fine. If it starts rattling or making me mad down the road, I'll just drill these out and take this whole thing out because we won't need it once we have hood pins. But the other issue I see the guy told me about is these kind of metal brackets, which are to actually secure the hood to your hinges. These are kind of loose. They shouldn't be wobbling. They should be secured in by these, but I don't think it matters because he said, hood was totally tight when he took it off. But I think once it's kind of tightened onto the latches, it's just going to kind of press fit all this in place. So I'm just going to pretend I didn't even see that. And otherwise, yeah, it looks really good. I'm just going to go ahead and I think take some sandpaper and just kind of go through and just kind of hit everything up, just scuff it up basically. There's not really much where like there's some kind of imperfection that I got to fix. I mean, a lot of this is just that's just the fiberglass mold. That's just how it is. So yeah, pretty happy with it. So basically we're just going to go ahead and sand it all down, probably hit it with some air, and then we'll do a bunch of wax and grease remover, and I think we can just go ahead and shoot this bad boy with the black paints. All right, guys, so I got into this bad boy and just got it all sanded. I ended up doing 180 grit because there ended up being a lot of little imperfections, even though at first I was like, oh, these won't bother me. Once I started going through it, I was like, well, I can just, sand this one out and sand this one out, but just a bunch of stuff. Like these used to be a lot thicker, so they're gonna look a lot better. And I can't believe I'm gonna say this right now, but I'm just looking here like at a lot of the edges, like stuff like this where, it's just, there's nothing in there because some parts they did get it smooth, some they didn't. So I'm kind of feeling like I want to go along this whole edge, kind of along the whole hood here, like some of this stuff too. And I just want to fill some of this with the glazing putty, which you're probably immeasurably going to regret, but I think I'm going to do that today. Just gonna get it all filled. It's already like 6:15 or something, so I've been out here messing around for like an hour. But it's gonna be, you know, getting evening, getting dusk, and there's just gonna be mosquitoes and bugs just freaking everywhere in probably the next 30 minutes. So it's probably not best to go ahead and paint this hood tonight anyway. So because we're just gonna get a bunch of junk all over it, especially now that it's kind of nicely, beautifully sanded. So I think I'm gonna do glazing putty tonight, and then we'll come out tomorrow. I'll just sand it real quick tomorrow, wax and grease remove it, and then boom, spray the black on it. All right, so we got the glazing putty on. I'm gonna call it a night, let this stuff dry. But yeah, gonna be some fun sanding all this down tomorrow. And it's probably gonna need another coat, but I don't know. At this point, definitely gonna look better than it did. So probably just gonna sand it, and then whatever it is whatever it is. And as long as like this looks really good, that's the top of the hood, right? So some of the sides, I think all this looked pretty good. Yeah, like this didn't even need anything, so it's gonna look a lot better. So pretty stoked, pretty happy about it. $150 hood is coming together. However, all the paint supplies and crap I bought, like all the spray paint, some sandpaper. Anyway, I spent 92 bucks on all the materials. Now, even if I would have bought a brand new $300 hood, it would have just had gel coat on it. I still would have had to have kind of sanded it and painted it, you know, and body worked it, all that stuff anyway. So is what it is. Still way cheaper in the long run. Plus this one's kind of cool. It's not that bad doing this stuff, and kind of cool that I have a little bit of sweat equity into it when I'm all done. And my daughter's been helping me, so it's always cool. She likes doing this stuff, and helping her kind of learn a little bit too. Keep the hobby rolling, you know what I'm saying? All right, guys, so we are the next morning here, and all this glazing putty crap is dried. So you can see, since some of it got slopped on so thick, it did get some cracking going. So I'm gonna start sanding it down, and then I'm hoping I don't really have to put any additional spots on it, because I'd like to just kind of sand it and then throw the paint on it and call it good. But we'll see. All right, so the weather cleared up and we came back out here to mess with the hood, and I think I'm just gonna leave what we got here after sanding. There's definitely some more cracks, some crap you could fill in if you really cared, but I think it's still gonna look better than it did when we started, and it's gonna be good freaking enough. So we are doing some wax and grease remover on this whole bad boy, and then I think what I'm gonna do, instead of painting this black first, I'm gonna actually flip it over. I think today we're just gonna go ahead and prime the top. Maybe we can get a couple coats of primer, and then even if we later on tonight, maybe I can do some sanding a little bit, see where we're at. Then what we can do is tomorrow we'll flip it back over to the bottom, then we'll paint the bottom, and then all I gotta do is wait till the next day, flip it over, and then we paint the top. And the reason why is I think right now if I do this black, then tomorrow I flip it over to do primer, I'm just worried about some overspray and stuff kind of getting underneath it, and then I might have to, you know, do some touch-ups and crap on the bottom anyway, which I don't want to do. So I'd rather just get all the primer done, and also this will give all this stuff even more, you know, like another day or so to dry. So I think that's what we're gonna do. So we're just kind of cleaning this up, wax and grease, flip her over, get some primer on her. Probably have to clean the top side again one more time, but primer, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, so we got this thing all flipped over, and from last time, I think we ended up hitting it with like, what, 320, and then I waxed and greased it. It still seems pretty good. There's just like some little bit of debris on it. So I've got Cam just hitting it with the tack cloth. So we'll get it all tack cloth. We're gonna have to give her some guidance there. But anyway, boom, I'm gonna let the girls help me go ahead and hit it up with some filler primer, and then we'll see what we got. And well, yeah, we'll let it dry, and then it won't be till tonight. I won't be back till 8 o'clock. So I'll probably get some sanding done tonight. We'll see. Hopefully it looks pretty good. And boom, then tomorrow we can just do the underside black, which will be Thursday. And then we should be able to flip it over Friday, and then boom, spray the top. And then hopefully maybe by the end of next week, Thursday or Friday, I'll go ahead and take this thing to go get wrapped.
Like this?
Yep, go ahead. Little ladies are, puts a tear to my eye to learn how to spray paint.
I can't breathe.
Yep, that's how it goes. Gosh dang, Rustoleum, make the cans a little bit easier to push in there. All right, looking good. I think you might be a graffiti artist in your future.
Well, I do love art.
Get it, Bob. All right, doing good.
Oh, God.
Once these kids can actually push the lid down on the can, they're gonna be experts.
Coming straight in my face.
I gotta say, my body work so far is looking pretty good. I mean, obviously it needs to be completely gone over, but with primer.
Rude.
But you guys did a pretty good job. And here we are the next morning, guys, and now we got this thing completely covered with some filler primer. And I don't know why it looks so spotty, but kids kind of sprayed it. I had to spray it. The pattern on that little rustoleum thing was really, really tiny, so that made it more difficult. Didn't have a nice wide fan pattern. So anyway, now what I'm gonna do on this is I'm gonna go ahead and hit it, probably just with some 600 grit, just real smooth it out. All right, boys, it took a little bit of time, probably 30 minutes or so, but this bad boy is finally all blocked out. So we ended up having to go first with actually some 320 grit because the 600 I had a little bit of orange peel all in the middle there. So I had to get some 320 to knock it out, followed up with some 600. She is all smooth, feeling good. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and wax and grease remove it, and then we're gonna flip it over and paint the other side. All right, boys, she's blowed off. She's ready to rock. We're gonna start applying some of our super high quality fancy paint here. Satin, baby. All right, so we got the first coat down. It took exactly 1 can, so it worked out pretty well. Now there are probably gonna be a couple spots, especially around the perimeter where we have the glazing putty that I'd like to probably touch it up. The middle is fine, I don't care about the middle. And probably this piece of metal, I'll try to shoot again. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this dry, probably give it 20, 30 minutes. I do have a bunch of paint, so I could even give it a whole nother coat, at least around the spots that I care about. Like I said, the middle, don't really care, but maybe just around all the edges and stuff. So we'll see what it looks like after it dries, and then we'll make a decision. But you know, a lot of this stuff with the glazing putty, you know, again, it's not freaking perfect. Once it dries too, it's gonna be more of a satin finish, not so shiny like it is right now, but I think it's gonna be pretty sweet. That is all she wrote on the bottom of this hood. So we got 2 actually full coats. I ended up just using the whole second can. So 2 cans on here. It's gonna take at least 2, if not 3 or 4 on the other side, just because we didn't have the black primer. We had to use a gray primer. So to get good coverage, it's gonna take a few coats, which is fine too. So anyway, that's it. We'll come back to this tomorrow and go mess around with some other stuff. All right, guys, and we are back the next morning again. It's Friday. We got this side all done. It is nice and dry, looking really good. There's a really almost probably nowhere on this side that's really an issue as far as, like, you know, bugs and crap getting in there. It all looks pretty dang good. I'm not gonna have to touch it up at all. So we're just gonna go ahead and flip this bad boy over and probably wax and grease the top one more time and then get this thing painted. All right, so that's the first coat. We laid down really just about a can, did the whole thing, and then I just grabbed a second can, just trying to hit a few little spots where it looked like maybe it wasn't totally hit. It's super hard with these paint cans. These paint cans, the way they spray out, it's a very, very narrow spray pattern. So a lot of the stuff, I think, if you get, like, not the rustoleum, but some of the automotive stuff, will have a little bit bigger spray pattern, almost like a real gun, and it's easier to overlap. But these kind of suck, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But we're not applying like real paint with clear coat and all that stuff, so it's just a freaking enamel, so we don't care too much. Once this kind of dries and stuff, after a couple days, I can come back and just kind of lightly wet sand it, buff it out a little bit, and that should be all we need to do. So I still have a whole bunch of paint. I actually have 4 cans here, so I definitely am going to do a second coat on this, and then that way we got a little bit more material too for when we do, if we do kind of buff it or sand out at least a few areas. You know, even if we have to sand a couple spots and then even touch it up, we could do that too. But I think it's looking pretty good. We'll see how it looks when it kind of dries in about 20 or 30 minutes. We'll come back, we'll do another coat, but so far so good. All the bodywork and stuff looks good, laid out nice and flat. I almost should have just went and bought a Wagner power painter and then a gallon of rustoleum, or even a half gallon, and just sprayed it out. Honestly, it would have been probably cheaper and easier, because each freaking can of this stuff's like, depending where you buy it, I think Walmart was the cheapest, $8 or $9. The hardware store was like $10. So, I mean, we literally spent, just to do the top, like $40 in paint, plus a couple cans on the bottom. I mean, it was $100, like I was telling you guys, to get all the material. So probably would have been cheaper to get a half gallon of just rustoleum, and then I could just reduce it, mix it, put in some automotive hardener, and then spray it out of a $30 Wagner power painter, and then throw the thing away. Or even a Harbor Freight version. So I've actually painted a couple cars before with the Wagner power painters, and it works pretty freaking good. As long as you put in the automotive hardener, reduce it correctly, it turns out really, really nice. Right, we got coat number 2 done, and turned out pretty good. I still have about a can and a half of paint, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do another final coat. But dude, all this stuff looks pretty good. I mean, there's some small debris and stuff on there, which you're gonna get when you're freaking painting outside. But as I'm painting over here, right? Dude, look at that. This huge freaking bug, like, dude, he was like this big. He just like flies right up in there while I'm painting. Yeah, so I had to flick him off, but he still got, like, that's his legs stuck in there, and like he kind of messed that whole area up. And then I had to go back. I sprayed some paint over it to try to help it even out, but whatever, that sucks. I mean, we're gonna be, it doesn't matter, right? We're gonna be wrapping this whole thing with a wrap. But anyway, gonna do one more coat. Let's just make it nice and thick. I'll get it bolted on the car. We're gonna have to install hood pins also, as I like to have all that stuff kind of cut and done before it gets wrapped. But pretty stoked. Our $150 hood, which is now about, you know, really like a $250 hood, it's coming along pretty good. So pretty stoked. One more coat and we'll be wrapping this up. I've used this satin black on a couple other hoods. Oh, well, I guess just really one other hood on my 68 Plymouth Fury wagon back in the day. But I did spray that out of the half gallon of like just Rust-Oleum paint, and then I just used hardener and stuff, and it turns out really nice. But this stuff looks good. It's good for undercoating. You can use it for, you know, in the engine bay, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of blends with nice OEM stuff. All right, third and final coat is wrapped up. So we'll wait till tomorrow morning and get this thing moved out in the garage, see how it looks. Otherwise, man, every time I do a coat, bugs just keep flying into it. So that's the problem when you're painting outside. Now, if you really wanted to do a better job, you could, if you had something like this, you could drape, you know, sides around it to help keep some of the bugs out and stuff. But it is what it is. So again, we don't really care. We're getting it wrapped. So let's just see what it looks like in the morning. All right, good morning, guys. So it is Saturday and our hood is nice and dry. So turned out really, really well. I think I just need to kind of buff it, polish it on out. It'll look pretty sweet. I don't even think I really need to wet sand it. There's only one big problem area from where that one crazy bug freaking landed on there. So you can see, yeah, look at that little kind of defect. So I'm not sure. I may end up actually just sanding that spot and then just do a quick touch up on it, and then we'll call it good. And then once I get this thing on the car, maybe I will just kind of, I got some polishing compounds. I'll just cut and polish it, but I don't even think it needs wet sanding. Turned out pretty good overall, so pretty stoked with it. Just because, like, I may end up doing like a bunch of car shows, the Woodward Dream Cruise, for the next few weeks until I can get this thing wrapped, because they're telling me to wait, you know, 3 or 4 weeks before they do the wrap. So in the meantime, just so it looks good, I'll buff it, cut, polish it, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's gonna be for another video. This video is already getting real long, but I'm super stoked. Turned out really good. All the edges and stuff on this thing look really good. They turned out really nice, and a lot of them were really chipped and messed up, so we did a good job with the glazing putty and all that sanding work. So I think that I'm gonna end this one here because it's already probably really long, but I hope this helps you guys. If you're thinking about refinishing or buying some used hood off Marketplace, definitely do it. It's not that hard. It doesn't take a whole lot of materials. You know, like I said, I probably just spent maybe an hour or two the last few days every day. So there's maybe 6-7 hours into this thing. And a lot of it's just the prep, right? Once you spray it, it's really easy, but pretty easy to do. And hey, you know, we got basically what, $250 hood now, and versus spending $500-600, it looks pretty good. Once we get it installed too, we'll have to do some hood pins. So that'll be probably the next video. Once we actually put it on, I'll do hood pins. I'll show you guys all that stuff. So until next time, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys on the next one.